furlough them. So that helped us with our costs during COVID. We also, through attrition, have trimmed our overhead by about $2 million. And going forward, we were able to work with our congressional delegation to have an elimination of a $3 million FEMA loan. I've worked with the Barrier Island mayors for beach replenishment from the Army Corps of Engineers. That was going to cost the municipality $7.5 million. Toms River would have cost about $2 million. We worked with the Ocean County Commissioners, and they are going to fund the $7.5 million for all the communities on the beachfront, which is as it should be, because the beaches are used by everybody, not just people from Toms River or Bay Head or Manaloki. So I think it's fair that the county stepped up and agreed to cover that. We've also worked very aggressively on open space. We have preserved over 100 acres of open space in all 4 wards, and that's never happened before. We've had open space with the Surf Club in Ward 1. We've never been able to preserve space there. We also have open space in Ward 2, both at Holiday City with a donation of 10 acres, and we recently worked with the school district to purchase 17 acres, which would have been 49 home sites. That purchase strategically helped the school board to fill a $4 million plus hole in their budget. And we're solid now through the 23-24 season in school. After that, we need to work with Trenton to get them to properly fund the schools. One of the other sites that we purchased was off of Whitty Road. St. Joe's Church was going to sell property. They gave us right of first refusal. We moved on it very quickly. We've also preserved land on Whitty Road, on Silverton Road, 7 acres. Also on Riverwood, 16 acres, and on Whitesville Road, 16 acres, and that covers all 4 wards. I also was very instrumental in bringing the VA to Toms River. I'm passionate about that. I served 35 years in the United States Navy, retired as a Rear Admiral. Ocean County has the largest amount of veterans in the state, and the Toms River site is strategically and centrally located for services for the veterans. The new building going behind the new VA is the Ocean County Social Services Building, and that'll provide social services to the veterans. Also, the New Jersey Veterans Bureau is in that building. We've also done some other things with parks. We have a new skate park. We have a new dog park. Field of Dreams opened up. We've got pickleball courts spread out throughout the township. We've got kayak launches, boat launches, and we've also installed a strike guard system on the beach, which we can share with both Seaside Heights and La Valette. All they have to buy is a receiver, and they can work on our system. One other thing I did, which is I like to move quickly. I don't like to let a lot of time lapse. I had several emails from residents in the Whitesville Road area complaining about the turning arrows. You were only able to get 2 cars at each sequence. I called the commissioner of the NJDOT, who I'm on a commission with, and she had that changed to a 15-second cycle. You can now get 8 cars through both New Hampshire, or both Massachusetts and Route 70 and Whitesville and Route 70. That's resulted in a reduction of 75% of accidents, and we haven't had a fatality out there since we had the switch over in the sequencing, and that was about a year and a half ago. So I'm going to continue to move forward on these positive moves and actions for Toms River. I served with the Marines, and it's either lead, follow, or get out of the way. And this team that I'm on is not stopping. We're forging ahead. We're addressing the needs of Toms River. And in addition, probably the most important thing is there hasn't been a tax increase in 3 years. So I've highlighted our positive accomplishments, and I think going forward, we warrant your support going forward in the June 6th election. Thank you.
Mr. Bianchini.
Yes, I want to thank everybody for having me here this evening. And growing up in Toms River for the last 62 years, I've seen some drastic changes throughout the town. One of the major issues that we're coming across is a lot of congested traffic jams throughout the city or the town, as well as a lot of people are opposed to the high-rise buildings downtown. and the density issues that we're having in the North Dover section. One of the things that I wanted to bring to the table, that I have a lot of experience in infrastructure and building and works throughout the city. I wanted to turn around and take the Toms River residents into a new direction. Hopefully that with my experience, and you look at my resume, you'll understand that I'm the real person for the real job.
Thank you. So, the first question I have for you gentlemen tonight relates to the downtown development, redevelopment project. That has been the source of real conflict over the last year and a half. And it was announced, when it was announced in 2021, even at that point, there were concerns that were raised, and there was a lengthy meeting in town hall about that issue. My question is, why should the project move forward as it is designed? Or if you oppose the project, what would you propose to do differently to revitalize downtown? Because that's been a key thing for years, has been revitalizing downtown.
Well,
Mr. Hill, go first.
downtown redevelopment's been talked about for 40 years. I do have some good news today, though. I've met with the developers. We've expressed our concerns about the 10-story building, and I'm happy to announce that that has been reduced to 6 stories. And if you'd like, I could show you a presentation of what the new building will look like. Instead of the 10-story building, there'll be 4 stories of apartment buildings with 2 parking garages, 2 stories of apartment garages on the base. This building will be smaller than Town Hall. So no longer are we going to be looking at a 10-story twin towers, but we're going to have 2 6-story buildings, 4 floors of apartments, and 2 parking garages at the base. The boardwalk will stay the same. The developer's spending about $5 million on a natural waterfront project, a living waterfront project. What that means is it's not going to be bulkheaded. It's going to have natural grasses. It's going to have rocks. You're going to have a boardwalk. We're also going to have an amphitheater. I think it's a great investment in downtown Toms River. We're looking forward to these apartments being possibly rented by the residents and interns at Community. As you know, that's a teaching hospital now, and they've got an internal medicine program, but they're also expanding into surgery, general surgery. So I'll leave this here. And I think that would answer a lot of the concerns residents have about the 10 stories. So we've, my group, my team has met with the developers. We've had over 30 meetings with them, and we've discussed the issue with the 10 stories, and they've come back to us with a new design. The DEP has already approved the living waterfront, so that concept is not going to change. Thank you.
Mr. Bianchini.
Yeah, speaking about the 10-story buildings downtown, first of all, I wanted to talk about that the township actually purchased that property for $3 million and did the demolition. We turned around and we gave them a tax abatement for the property. We sold it to the developer for $1, which I got to believe that this is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't go far enough. What I would have proposed is, if I was with their team, I would have turned around and actually did a mixed use for the bottom and made a nice big parking garage, because right now there's no place to park downtown. There's nothing more frustrating than to actually come into an area where there's no parking. If they can't park, they're going to leave. They're never going to come back. If you turned around and had a nice big parking garage to accommodate all of the people that come downtown, you could actually turn around and do some of the things that some of the other towns do, as far as open up the streets and having some outside dining and so forth and so on. You could have actually turned around on the top of it, made some kind of a green space type of a park up there where people can actually watch the fireworks from the rooftop, or go downtown and visit some of the restaurants and turn around and enjoy an evening upstairs, and also have maybe like a movie night or something like that for the kids. You could also incorporate that as well with the park at Huddy Park and consolidate everything down there. The problem is right now downtown, it's a traffic nightmare. So whatever that we do downtown as far as more residents is going to be crazy. If you don't have parking for people to actually be able to park and enjoy the day down there, they're not going to come. There's no parking downtown now at all. So with this, that parking garage is fine for the residents there. But what's going to happen down the road is that there's a possibility, since this is actually owned by a developer, down the road he can turn around 5, 10, 15 years down the road, he can turn everybody, evict everybody out of there and take these apartments and switch them over to condos and turn around and make $1 gazillion on it on the backs of the taxpayers. That shouldn't be able to happen. And they also got tax abatements for the next 20 or 30 years. We could have actually brought in a lot of developers that would have made a better deal for this, for the residents of Toms River. We're looking at this one-sided just to bring people in. We have to stop that theory, build it and they will come. The problem is that we have, Toms River is already built almost at maximum right now, the density. I don't know if the mayor's team or anything like that looked into the build out for like 2024 or 2045, 20 years down the road, but someone has to take this thing seriously. We cannot continue on just building and not knowing if our infrastructure is going to be able to handle it. I actually do that for a living. I understand that there's other things that happen. When you bring more people downtown, you need more police officers, you need more collections, your infrastructure has got to be upgraded. There's a lot more to it than just bringing people to Toms River. And we can't give them a sweetheart deal on the backs of Toms River residents when we have seniors that are actually turning around and making month to month on their Social Security, and then we're giving away taxpayers' money on these sweetheart deals. I agree with the mayor. We have to do something to revitalize downtown, but we have to sit down and think about what's actually the best for the whole downtown and the community of Toms River.
Can I address?
1 minute rebuttal.
Okay. First of all, the dollar number that's been thrown around is a misnomer. In the development agreement, the developer has agreed to provide amenities to the township. As I showed you on this, we have a living waterfront, we have an amphitheater, we have a boardwalk. That's costing the developer about $5 million in improvements, and that's going to be open to the public. In addition, when we purchased the Red Carpet Inn, we purchased that because it was a nuisance. It was a drug den. We had over 700 calls in 1 year by our police department. So it was costing us money to respond to drug deals in that motel. So we purchased it for probably more than it was worth, but we purchased it to get rid of a nuisance. A lot of that is what's going on at Seaside Heights right now. They're tearing down motels and they're building new structures. So we purchased that to get rid of a nuisance, and we saved money by not having 700 calls a year go to that hotel. So I think the money was offset by the savings in services that we didn't have to provide to that facility. But we purchased that originally as a nuisance to get rid of it.
Can I rebut with that?
Yes.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree with the mayor more. Mayor Hill. One thing that I can say is that it was definitely a nuisance. It was an eyesore, and everybody knew it from day one. But we could actually still do stuff downtown where we could put a police substation right downtown with the mixed-use building. We could turn around and do some other things that the community as a whole can use. Because once the developers get this property here and they start development, believe you me, they're not going to want to wind up taking care of all this property here at the taxpayer's expense. They're going to sit there and make it where we're not going to be able to utilize it. But one thing I can say for sure is that we need to get this thing correct before it's too late, because once that you build it, and then we have nothing but confusion and traffic jams downtown. I know that the infrastructure and stuff that they're talking about doing, they were talking about a roundabout and everything. If you put a roundabout downtown Toms River, it will be gridlocked like you've never seen. I can't even come home on Route 37 without catching 2 or 3 traffic lights on Route 9 and Main Street downtown because of all the traffic there. So when we add more people down there, it's not like that we have mass transportation where we can get in and out. We have to deal with vehicles in and out of downtown. And a lot of people are complaining about that. They don't even go downtown. They say, we refuse to go downtown. There's no place to park. So this is only going to enhance that probable down there right now.
Okay. All right.
Can I respond to the rebuttal?
You can respond to it at the end.
Okay.
We're going to move on to the next topic.
Okay.
The next topic, next question, I'm going to have Mr. Bianchini go first.
Okay.
Halting, on the same theme, halting overdevelopment has been a constant theme for over a decade. What is your proposal for halting it? And how much more land do you think Toms River should purchase for open space?
First of all, all the land that we're proposing to purchase, I agree with. There's not that much land left that we can actually purchase, so anything that we can purchase for a fair market value, I agree with. But the biggest problem that we have is in the North Dover section. I already was up there not too long ago, and they're already putting new water mains down Route 9. We can't widen Route 9 any more than it already is. They're going to do some widening there, but it's going to be very minimal. The problem is once that you start doing that, then you have to start looking at upgrading our infrastructure for the sewer. Then what's going to happen is that Route 9 that you have there, it's single traffic each way. You might be able to get a sewer side lane in there. The problem that you have is that you're never going to be able to get all that traffic. You can't, for the last, Mayor Hill didn't take this, he didn't create this. This has been like this for the last 30 years. Route 9 has been a disaster to try to get, but with all that density that's going on up in the North Dover, it is going to exacerbate all this big time, because where are you going to go with it? I mean, there's not enough people there. And what's going to happen is that once you put all these residents down there, the traffic is not going to be able to move. You're going to be there forever and ever and ever. And then what are you going to do? Go back at a later date when you realize that the sewer system does not be able to handle all that and rip it all up? Where would those people go? We have to look at the big picture 20 years down the road, not just what's going down day to day. Listen, and I know that they do traffic studies. Those traffic studies that they do are for each project. We have to do a comprehensive traffic study for the whole build out in North Dover, let alone the people that are actually driving up and down Route 9, both directions, north and south. On top of that, we have all these people that are actually moving to North Dover. If you look at that, they're clearing land as far as you can see. I mean, there's not one tree left. We have to realize that all that runoff is going to go someplace. They have some water quality chambers, or they have some storm basins there. That's only for small rains. When you get the heavy downpours, that runoff has to go someplace. All of that runoff goes into our tributaries. We'll go either to Shenandoah River, Brookside. All of them actually lead out to the Barnegat Bay. All of our residents that are on the Barnegat Bay, on the bay side, are getting flooded out. I understand that the mayor and the engineers are trying to raise the roads, but all you're doing is by raising the roads is that you're turning around and taking the water off the roadways onto the properties. And that's going to be another problem we're going to have to face down the road. I know it's a short-term solution, but it's a solution that we're going to have to deal with because it's not going to go away.
Okay. Mr. Hale.
Thank you. We've had an aggressive program of buying open space. And as I said, we bought it in all 4 wards, but we've concentrated in the northern section of Toms River. However, I would argue that that development was mandated by the state. We had over 3,000 units in rounds 1, 2, and 3 of COA. We were mandated in the last round 3, 1,286 units. That was court mandated. They wanted 2,400 units. We went to the court and we were mandated for 1,286 units. Those units have long since been approved under prior administrations. The only long-term or large project is the one you're seeing in front of me here. That's been approved when I've been in office. Everything else was approved under prior administrations. But that development out there was mandated by the state. It wasn't something that Toms River chose to do. It was a mandate to provide these affordable housing units. We're coming up on round 4, and round 4 I think starts in 2025. My attitude on that is over my dead body. We've provided over 3,000 units of affordable housing in Toms River. We were hit with one of the largest numbers of any municipality in the state. And until the other towns contribute 3,000 units of affordable housing, and until the state steps in and improves Route 9, and I disagree with you, it can be improved. It just takes some money and it takes the will to if you drive down Route 9 anywhere in Ocean County, it's a traffic jam, not just in Toms River. So we need that road improved. It's improved in Monmouth County, but not in Ocean County. And if you're not going to improve that road, then take the tolls off the parkway, because our people have to commute on the parkway. So eliminate the tolls in Ocean and Monmouth County if you're not going to address the infrastructure.
Listen, one thing I could say is if the state mandated that and we have to upgrade our infrastructure, who's going to be responsible? The taxpayers of Toms River are going to be the ones that's going to be holding the dollar for that. We have to make sure, listen, they can mandate whatever they want, but the problem is someone has to be able to make sure that when they mandate something, that our infrastructure can handle this. They can mandate that we have to do 5,000 units for low-income housing. We can't do it because we can't accommodate it. So listen, we have to understand when we talk about this, that this has to be done in a fundamentally way where it's actually beneficial for everybody, not just because it got mandated. We're not going to be able to handle it. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be able to be handled.
My understanding is that the sewer infrastructure can handle it. They're doing improvements to the water lines now on Route 9 because they're going to be milling and paving it, and there will be turning lanes on 9, but that's not enough. But I think the infrastructure can handle it, but we're at max build out now, and I don't foresee much building in the future at all. Single family homes, we're not going to have much in multifamily because we've met our affordable housing requirements. So everything that you see cleared out there is in the affordable housing plan.
Okay. Mr. Hill, you'll take this question first. Ortley Beach has become a hot spot for kids in the last couple of summers, much to the source of frustration of residents. What will you do to proactively address the problems that have prompted temporary curfews the last 2 summers?
Well, we recently had a beach meeting with our police chief, our business administrator, our engineer, because as you know, we were repairing the beach. I think they're looking at a curfew. They want to make sure that the curfew marries up with the surrounding towns. I mean, the worst thing could be was if we had a 11 o'clock curfew and Brick has a 10 o'clock curfew, then where are the kids going to go? They're going to migrate into Ortley Beach, into North Beach. So we want to do this in conjunction with our neighbors and do it smartly. When you do a curfew, remember the curfew is town-wide. This isn't, the restrictions we had under COVID are no longer in effect, where we could pick one area of town and say our emergency manager could issue a curfew for one specific part of the town. If we institute a curfew now, it'll have to be township-wide, and that's being worked on with the police chief now. They're having discussions, and we're coming up on Memorial Day, so I would anticipate that we will have something concrete within the next 2 weeks.
Mr. Bianchini.
I agree with the mayor. You definitely have to have consistency through all the shore towns. One of the things that's happening is that they have a lot of these pop-up events on the internet and stuff like that, and it's problematic for the police department because they have to constantly surveillance, find out where the source is, break them down, everything, because all they're going to do is bring a bunch of people down there to cause chaos, and then we're going to be wind up have to deal with that. And like the mayor said, they're going to go from one town to the other. So I believe in definitely having a curfew, which all the surrounding towns have, and then this way here we can try to alleviate some of the stuff there where these people are hanging out and cause a havoc on the police department.
All right?
Do you want me to respond?
Yes.
I think our police department monitors social media for these pop-up parties,
Yeah.
and that's been effective in cutting out a lot of those, as are the other towns along the shore, and they're sharing that information. The good news is we have a group called the Barrier Island Mayors, and we share the information. There were a lot of car thefts, and we worked with the mayors to identify, how to stop that and to curb it. You can't leave your key in your car and expect that somebody's not going to take it. That just doesn't make sense. But I know that all the police chiefs on the Barrier Island monitor social media, and they will alert any one of the towns if, hey, there's a pop-up party scheduled for Ortley Beach on Friday night, and our police will be on top of that, and they'll deploy forces to take care of that.
Did you have anything more?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Next question I have relates to the school district and the issues of the finances. Mayor Hill, you mentioned before working with the state to address that. How exactly do you think you're going to get them to address the fact that Toms River is facing a $26 million shortfall for the 24-25 school year?
Well, I think we have to have some rational minds in Trenton to look at a formula. This S2 formula is obviously not working. I had the opportunity to testify before the budget committee, and we were able to get $9.5 million back from them. And as I said, when we purchased the land, that filled the gap of the $15 million that we were losing. We were the second largest city to lose state aid. The largest was Jersey City. Now, out of the 30 districts in Ocean County, 19 had reductions. Yet Ocean County is the third fastest growing county in the state. It defies logic. I don't care what kind of formula you're using. The one they're using doesn't work. I'll use Camden as an example. Camden has 10,000 students, 2 high schools. They get 330 million in this budget. The Toms River Regional budget for 14,700 students is 245 million. We get $2,200 per student. We've gone from 67 million to 34 million. That's a cut of 50% right off the top, but it's magnified because each year you're losing money and it compounds. So we need to come up with a better formula. We need to come up with something that's going to be fair per student. As I said, Camden is getting 42,000 per student. We're getting 2,200. Their graduation rates are 60%, ours are 93. So you've got to come to some kind of a logical solution. And I don't know what S2 is, but it's not working. Should be a per pupil cost so that it's fair across the board. And if you want to supplement the municipalities, so be it. But the inner cities, but you should have a standard cost per student that makes sense. $2,200 in Toms River to educate a student, when it costs $20,000 to educate a student in Toms River, it's the third lowest in the state for the size of a district. And instead of being rewarded, we're punished. And you can't pick winners and losers based on your political party.
I agree with the mayor as far as the formula. The formula is way out of whack. This is what happens when people in the state turn around and play politics. We have a Republican town, and what they're doing is they're reallocating the money from Toms River to some of these other towns that are short-handed. The problem that we have with this is that you could keep adding more and more money to these other districts, and you're not going to get any more graduation or graduates or anything like that. The problem is we have to be consistent. I thought it was all about taking care of the kids in this state, and the governor said, you know, we won't leave anybody behind. But evidently they're leaving the Toms River resident kids behind. You can't, that formula is not sustainable. Before long, we're going to be having kids get no money here, and then all these other towns are going to get it. We cannot turn around and keep taking money from the good school districts and reallocate it to other school districts, and they don't have the amount of people graduating or the amount of people in the school districts. I mean, it's just not fair. And this is how people get in government. They start playing politics, and guess what? The kids are the ones that's going to be wind up being the ones that's going to wind up holding a hand there with no educations there.
Any rebuttal?
Just the return on investment doesn't seem to be working with the inner cities. So something's wrong. Something's got to change. Whether it's a socio-economic change in the inner cities, but we've got to get back to some kind of a logically based, verifiable school formula. And what we have right now is not verifiable, defies any logic at all.
I agree. Money is not the answer. You can keep giving more and more money. You're not going to get any more kids graduating.
All right, with that, we're going to take a 5-minute intermission. welcome back. Thank you for joining us for the remainder of the debate between the Republican candidates for mayor in Toms River. Mo Hill and Robert Bianchini have joined us tonight. I'm Karen Wall with the Toms River Patch. My final question for you, before we switch to you two asking questions of each other, is this. Homelessness has been a serious issue in Ocean County and in Toms River. There has been a tremendous effort to help the homeless during the winter with the Code Blue effort and Just Believe and the efforts that they're making at the Riverwood complex. What would you propose to do to find a more permanent housing solution for those temporary, to temporarily house people who are without housing in times when Code Blue doesn't apply?
All right. Do you want me to? Okay.
Actually, Mr. Bianchini should go first.
Well, that's an excellent question, and I got to say that I believe a lot of these people that are homeless choose to be homeless for they have maybe mental issues, family issues, or whatever. So it's all the above, but we definitely have to do more for our homeless. I mean, we're helping people in other countries and spending billions of dollars on it, and we can't even help our own locally or throughout the United States. I mean, I just don't understand how we can actually be helping other people in other countries when our own people in this country here are sleeping in the woods, don't know where the next meal's coming from, and so forth and so on. I'm hoping that a lot of them are veterans. I mean, believe it or not, I would probably say that out of probably maybe 50 or 60% of them are veterans. And listen, they need help. They need to take their medication. They need it. Maybe this VA hospital that we have in Toms River will be able to accommodate some of these people. But we have to get serious as far as putting something in town where some of these people will be able to be housed and as far as being looked after until they can get back on their feet again. Some people just have drug addictions or alcohol. I mean, there's places for them to go, but they have to make sure that they can get there, they can get the proper care that they need. But they definitely need help, and it's a mental issue problem that we all have to deal with because the way that things are going right now, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. I can tell you that.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you. I'm not going to make any judgments on whether a person has mental illness because they're homeless. There's a lot of reasons. But this is a bigger problem than can be solved by Toms River Township. This is something that the county has to look at. We don't have the resources that the county does. The county has social service programs. We don't have that capability locally. And I agree. We need to find a site. You know, we do have the Code Blue in the winter. We house anywhere between 25 up to as many as 30 people, depending on the temperature. But in the summertime, that's not open. So we need a year-round facility. Where that's going to be located, I think we have to do an analysis of where is the greatest need for a shelter. Is it in the northern section of it? Is it in the central location? Do we need two locations? Do we need one in the southern part and one in the northern part? But it's a situation that's going to have to be addressed by the Ocean County government. It's too big. It involves all towns. It crosses boundaries. Lakewood has homeless, Jackson, Toms River, Brick. So we need a structure at the county level that's going to take care of that.
Do you have a rebuttal?
No, that's fine.
Okay. We have to take a 2-minute break. They have to adjust the cameras. All right, Mr. Bianchini, you can go first. please ask your question of Mr. Hill.
So, Mayor Hill, I know that you are advocating open space for the Ciba-Geigy site. I can say without a doubt that probably me nor you will be around when that thing gets finally cleaned up. Wouldn't it be wise for maybe instead of the Toms River residents and you and your team taking on an endeavor that we possibly get the county to indulge in possibly taking this on for the simple fact it's on the western part of Toms River. We have Berkeley Township is relatively close there. You have Manchester, you have Toms River, you have Jackson and Lakewood. That's all probably surrounding that. Instead of us actually spending our resources on something like that that's been going on for at least 40, 45 years. And I appreciate you looking at the open space, but I just wanted to put it out there that I think that that's a heavy lift just for the Toms River residents and have to be involved in when I think that the county has a lot more muscle in it that we could turn around and utilize them to help the Toms River residents and all the Ocean County residents, because I don't think that BSFA is going to wind up giving it up that easy either. I mean, it's going to be a fight. They didn't pay for all that kind of money for them just to walk away from it to give it to us. So I just like to know.
He's getting into my closing remarks.
Okay.
Answer?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
BASF sued us on a tax appeal saying that property was worthless. We paid them $17.3 million. Now they have come back with a sweetheart deal with the state, and I will tell you that the commissioner of the NJDEP didn't have the courtesy to come down and meet with our residents. I think if you're a leader, you show up in the good, you take the good news and the bad news.
Yep.
You don't duck the bad news. He did not give us the courtesy of showing up. They've got this thing teed up, and I think they're going to push it forward. We have sent numerous letters to them saying we were never involved in the process. We feel that 250 acres should be given to Toms River. We shouldn't have to buy it. It should be given to us for damages. They already are getting $500,000 for the largest solar farm in New Jersey. It's a 25-year contract with 3 5-year extensions. That's over $20 million on property they told us was worthless. So if it's worthless, give it to us for nothing. If you're not going to give it to us for nothing, I'm going to condemn it. And I'm going to fight you saying it was worthless. We'll take it for $2 and move on. But nothing's going to be built out there. I can tell you that. As long as I'm the mayor, I will fight any construction at that site. It's going to stay 1,200 acres of open space.
And that's fantastic. The only thing that I want to make sure is that everybody understands that there's still contaminations out there. So until that actually gets cleaned up, you can't put the solar farms out there because where are they going to put the solar farms? On the clean areas? We can't put a park out there because the kids that they want to put out there are going to be exposed to this. I worked and I had a construction company on Route 9 where Reich's Farm was, and they never told us when they were doing all this work. They were out there in space suits and everything else like that. We were out there just walking around like it was another day in the park. So my major concerns is going forward, if it stays green space like it is right now for the next 50 years, 100 years, they should be, that's fine. But we cannot do anything with Ciba-Geigy until it's totally 100% clean. And then if they do a solar farm out there, which I think is useless out there, just leave it green space out there, and then possibly when it's cleaned up at a later date, whenever that may be, that'd be fantastic to use it as a park. But right now, we don't even know what's in the ground. They don't even know where everything is buried yet. Listen, I can tell you, when they started at Reich's Farm, they started at one spot, say this, and it wound up going throughout the whole farm there. So that's fine. If it stays the way it is, that's great.
Well, Bob, that ship's already sailed. There's already a solar farm out there. So they put it over the most contaminated site. It's not permanently fixed. It's on floating concrete slabs. But the flow or the plume from that goes south and east in the aquifer that was affected. These 250 acres are to the west. It's pristine land. And now BASF wants to develop that land. Not happening on my watch. Okay? Not happening on my watch. We're either going to take it by condemnation, and we may work with the county on that, but if we have to, we'll take it by condemnation. We're not going to let them build something out there.
Yeah, no,
Not after they stuck their finger in our eye to the tune of $17.3 million. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. That doesn't compute. If it's worthless, we'll take it.
The only thing is
and it'll stay open space. There's already a solar farm out there, so that ship sailed.
Well, I could say one thing is that when you have a Republican town and you have a Democratic governor, it's going to be tough to fight them because they're going to turn around and just cram it down our throat.
Watch me.
No, I get it. I'm not saying that you're not going to fight them, but I'm just saying that it's the taxpayers always wind up coming at the short end of the stick with on some of the stuff.
Life,
Okay.
listen, I've faced a lot of issues in my life, and this is another tough one. We're going to take care
No,
of it.
I appreciate it. Listen,
When you talk to the right,
Oh, okay.
you're talking away
Okay.
from your mic.
All
There you
right, let's
Okay.
move on to, do you have any questions, Mr. Hill?
No, I don't have any. If Bob doesn't have any other ones for me,
I just
we
have
can go to-
one more, and it's
Okay.
not off the chart. It's not anything crazy. So I know that we just talked a little while ago about the beachfront replenishment and stuff like that. I work in the city of Asbury Park. They do the beach replenishment there, and I can tell you, they spend millions and millions, if not billions of dollars on doing a beach replenishment. One thing I can tell you, it seems fantastic for the beach replenishment, but every time we turn around, and I saw Mo over there walking the other day when I showed these 4-foot cliffs, everything. One thing you have to understand, Mother Nature in that ocean is going to take that sand out there continuously. We just can't keep dumping and filling in the ocean, because most of that sand, believe it or not, is not going out to the ocean. Some of it goes out to the ocean, but when you get those northeast storms, all of that sand comes into the Barnegat Bay. It places itself, it sediments inside of the Barnegat Bay, and it's filling on our Barnegat Bay. I know that he means all good intention as far as doing beach replenishment, but we have to look at the bigger picture. What we're doing is we're filling in the Barnegat Bay, and every time that we get these rainstorms, that we get these heavy rainstorms or these northeast rainstorms, that we're getting 2 or 3 inches, and all that runoff goes into the Barnegat Bay. Some of these lagoon lots areas and along the Barnegat Bay, low-lying areas, now what's happening is that the water, the drainage, it's not that the drainage can't work, it's underwater. It's cresting over the bulkheads, and when it crests over the bulkheads, it's flooding across the street. There's hardly anything that we can actually do other than possibly at some time get with the Army Corps of Engineers, the DEP, and say, listen, we have to open up some kind of a box culvert or some kind of a channel, just like we do with a snowstorm. We get preemptive, where we could start to lower down. We have 3 lakes in Asbury Park, and I can tell you, before a major storm comes, we have to start lowering that water, because if not, they'll all crest above it. This is a thing that the county and all the mayors have to get together and say, look, we got to get with the New Jersey NJET, Department of DEP, and say, look, we have to put something so we can have something where we can have an automated gate that goes up, let some of the water go out, and then possibly when the storms come in, close them down, just for the simple fact we can relieve some of this water so it's not flooding out the low-lying areas. Because right now, every time it rains, people are screaming. They can't move around their vehicles.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I think we've talked to the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. I was over there to look at the dunes. Our eastern portion of the dune is what gets attacked every year.
Right.
We lose 8 to 10 feet of the dune. The dune's working. It's protecting lives and it's protecting property. That dune, in my opinion, should go back 75 feet, and the DEP agrees. So when they come this time, the dune's going to be moved to the west, closer to the boardwalk. If you look at Seaside Park, the dune starts almost right at the boardwalk. So if we can move our dunes back and have more beach, we'll have less erosion on the dunes. I disagree with Bob. I don't think the sand is going to the Barnegat Bay, because it would have to go east to the Manasquan or all the way down to the Barnegat Inlet. And the sand's not going to flow that far. It's going to be deposited on other beaches. We lose sand to Lavalette, we lose it to Seaside Heights, or it just goes out in the ocean. But if we move the dunes westward, we're gonna protect the toe of that dune, and we won't get the erosion that we get every year. Now, we do have some condos that jut out. That is going to be a problem every year that will have to be addressed. But the rest of the beach, if we can move those dunes 75 feet, I'd like to see them move back further, but I'll take 75. I'll take what I can get. I think you'll see a lot less destruction of the dune over the winter storms.
I have one rebuttal. I know that the mayor disagrees with me, but I have pictures on my phone, and I can tell you for a fact, standing here, that the sand is coming in through the Barnegat Bay, and I have a buddy of mine that lives in the Barnegat Bay that he picked up 65 foot of beach. He used to be able to have a 30-foot Chris Craft pull into his dock, and it's all you can see is the top of the pilings. It is coming in. It's hitting more of the Forked River and Lacey, but it's mostly coming up this shore. It's not coming all the way up this yet, but once that you take that Barnegat Bay and you start filling it with sand, you don't have the reserve there that you once had once before. So what happens is, it's just like your bathtub. If you turn around and filled it up with 3/4 of water, then you put 6 inches of sand, the water's gonna go over top of it. You don't see a lot of that stuff where it's displaced in there. When it comes in the northeastern, it comes into it. There's more power and there's more water on that side than on this side. The only way that it goes out, if it's a west wind. The ocean's too powerful. It's not going out. I can show you pictures for a fact that it's filling in. It might not be as prevalent as it is in Toms River as it is, but it's that whole area is nothing more than a retention basin for when it rains, and that's what we're losing at. And I couldn't disagree more.
All right, we'll move on to closing statements. Mr. Bianchini, you go first.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody tonight for giving me this opportunity to express my concerns for Toms River and the residents. I'm not saying that the mayor's job is an easy job. I could tell you that he's got a bunch of challenges that he has to handle. I want to be able to utilize my expertise and my infrastructure experience, as well as my love for the community. I want to do everything I possibly can for the Toms River residents. Whether it's helping people or being mayor, I'd like to make some changes, and hopefully that you'll support me in the June 6th primary, and moving forward, I'd like to work for you and the taxpayers. Thank you.
Mr. Howe.
One question I didn't ask Bob, and I should have, is,
Yeah.
Bob, this is a full-time job.
Yep.
Are you going to leave the job as DEP director in Asbury Park to devote your full time to the township residents of Toms River?
Listen, if I'm fortunate enough to win, not only am I willing to do that, I'm going to take a cut in half my pay for the residents of Toms River and give up lifetime benefits for me and my wife, just so I can do the job that I said I was going to do. So yes, I would do that.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward, our game plan going forward is to continue, as I said, to move the town in a positive direction. I think you've seen this first start today with the changing of the 10 floors down to 6 floors. But we've also got the VA that's opening up. That's going to be twice the size. It's going to be 72,000 square feet. That's twice the size of the one in Brick. It's going to mean more medical benefits for our veterans. They're not going to have to go up to East Orange for everything. They're going to get more benefits locally. It's going to be jobs for our residents and tax revenue. That site, much to my surprise, is leased. So we're going to get $10,000 or $100,000 in a pilot, where right now it's only generating $4,000. So we're also looking at partnering with some of our larger businesses. Community Medical Center is undergoing a tremendous growth. They've built a 97,000 square foot facility out on 37. They're going to be rehabbing the hospital on 37. And so these are all going to be jobs and infrastructure. We're going to continue to look at open space. And I think the big thing coming down the horizon is fighting for our schools. That's going to be an ongoing battle. That's not going to end in 1 year. We have to fight that fight with Trenton to make sure we get what is our just desserts. And that should be based on a per student, some type of a per student formula. You can't just pull something out of the air. And I disagree with Bob. I think we can work on picking up that space out at BASF. I think the property should be deeded to Toms River in payment for the damage done to the environment. The day after our meeting, the commissioner, Sean LaTourette, changed the way they calculate natural resource damage claims. But it was prospective, not retrospective. So we were left out of that. And I still think when they showed their presentation, they said the groundwater contamination was 1,200 acres. Guess what that site is? 1,200 acres. So it should all be dedicated as open space, and we should have control of the 250 acres that's developable land. Because in the future, we may need that. We may need that for recreation facilities, but it should be in our inventory and not in BASF's inventory. And we're going to continue to be fiscally conservative with our taxpayer dollars. I think we're very good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. When you have a zero increase in the last 3 years with 9% inflation, that's pulling a rabbit out of a hat. And we've been able to do it for 3 years in a row. And we're teed up to do the same thing next year and going forward. We found new sources of revenue. We put in a hotel tax that brought us in over $1 million. We just recently auctioned off a distribution license. We were estimating we're bringing in $700,000. It was a competitive bid. It was $1.6 million. So we're looking at strategic ways to increase our revenue in the township and keep our taxes level. And they have been level for the last 3 years. Zero, doesn't get any better than zero. And zero in the face of this inflation is remarkable. And that's a testament to our team, our CFO, all of our department heads, and all of our employees. because this ship doesn't go straight ahead unless everybody's pulling oars in the same direction. So again, my statement going forward is we're an action group. We don't sit back and wait for things to happen. We make things happen. And it's lead, follow, or get the heck out of our way, because we're not stopping. We're moving this town ahead, and we're going to do great things. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening, and I hope everybody back at Bob Shea's house has left some food for Art and I.
I just got one thing.
Thank
I want
you.
to rebut what the mayor just said there. He said there was no tax.
We're not doing rebuttals
Oh,
on
okay.
closing statements.
Okay.
With that, thank you everyone for tuning in and for your time, and have a good rest of the primary campaign season.